comes back here into the courtyard and hangs herself from the tree right there.
Now, legend has it that a brother of the Sultan, a gentleman by the name of Solomon, came here to the port of New Orleans, and some believe he was running from his brother the Sultan in Turkey. And when he got here, he had his entire entourage with him. His entire harem had this fortune in gold and jewels. And legend states that he bought or rented this house from Jean-Baptiste Patry. I'm trying to get that right. My French speakers out there, don't kill me. I know, I can hear my wife right now. You put a Spanish R on it. Sorry, South Texas. It's just the way it is. But rents this house, turns it into a fortress. His bodyguards were stationed outside. People heard the parties going late into the night. The smell of opium would permeate to the streets of the French Quarter. And on a dark and stormy night, all went silent. Now, the neighbors here in the French Quarter thought that was a bit peculiar. So the next morning, as they were out, the quarter started to come to life. One of those neighbors walks by that doorway right there. He notices a viscous fluid coming out from under the door, running down the steps onto the street. It's blood. So, according to legend, they make their way into the house where they find 36 to 48 members of this entourage murdered, decapitated, dismembered. No body could be figured out what went with what. Nobody could find the Sultan until they came out into the courtyard. And underneath the tree that was cut down just a few years ago, they saw a hand reaching up out of the dirt as if reaching for life itself. They pulled the dirt away. That's where they found the Sultan. Historically speaking, none of this ever happened. There is no historical documentation to prove that that story ever existed. In fact, the building we know as Sultan's Palace today was built in 1836 by a gentleman by the name of Jean-Baptiste Patry. He lived in the house for a very long time, off and on. He actually owned a lot of plantations just outside of the city, and this was basically his summer retreat home. Now, of course, the 1860s hit. The United States is embroiled in the Civil War. He can't afford to keep the house anymore just to himself, so he starts to rent it out. This is where some of those stories get started. Now, we know historically that Jean-Baptiste stayed in this house until 1878. The stories of Sultan's Palace, the legend of the murder of Sultan's Palace, didn't start until 1922. Here's where I challenge you. Because we know for a fact that all legends have their kernel of truth somewhere in them. What was that kernel of truth that started these legends that persist to this very day, besides just being told by tour guides? As investigators, there is paranormal activity in this house. The lady who owns this house freely talks about the paranormal activity that goes on in this house. Keys disappearing on a regular basis. People will say they've seen a Civil War, a Confederate soldier moving in and around the property, which is interesting because there were no major battles in the Civil War fought here in and around New Orleans. New Orleans surrendered to the Union, to Admiral Farragut, without a shot being fired. Now, keep in mind, as we've talked about in earlier episodes, we have some hotels just down the way that were Civil War hospitals. So, is this Civil War soldier somebody who his last memories are of something that was on this property? Here? Some memory that keeps him drawn here? The other image is of a brown-haired, long-haired lady who has been seen moving around the property. Nobody knows who she is. Some think that she's a former tenant who might have lived in the property at one point and loved the house so much she's not willing to leave. Keep in mind, a lot of times, that line between legend and history is very, very blurry. And all of those legends start somewhere, and there's there's a reason those stories persist, much like the story of Sultan's palace. Smash the hell out of that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, that way you get notified when we post new things up on our YouTube channels. Those are going to be different than our weekly episodes. If you feel it in your heart, you want to donate, as the Demons Tea Room guys will tell you, Scooby Snacks, if you feel it in your heart, if you can, to donate to the cause, Scott will be placing a link for those donations down below to tip the tour guides you see out here. Because as much as I love telling the history, as much as I love walking in the shadows of New Orleans, vampires still gotta eat. Since you guys frown on me eating tourists and small younglings, you gotta help a brother out here. So remember that.